Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we are continuing with Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 2, text number 117. Siddhanta Bali Achite Nakara Alasa Iha Haite Krishna Lage Sutrita Manasa. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Purport. There are many students who, in spite of reading the Bhagavad Gita, misunderstand Krishna because of imperfect knowledge and conclude him to be an ordinary historical personality. This one must not do. One should be particularly careful to understand the truth about Krishna. If because of laziness one does not come to know Krishna conclusively, one will be misguided about the cult of devotion, like those who declare themselves advanced devotees and imitate the transcendental symptoms sometimes observed in liberated souls. Although the use of thoughts and arguments is a most suitable process for inducing an uninitiated person to become a devotee, neophytes in devotional service must always alertly understand Krishna through the vision of the revealed scriptures, the bona fide devotees, and the spiritual master. Unless one hears about Sri Krishna from such authorities, one cannot make advancement in devotion to Sri Krishna. The revealed scriptures mention 9 means of attaining devotional service, of which the first and foremost is hearing from authority. The seed of devotion cannot sprout unless watered by the process of hearing and chanting. One should submissively receive the transcendental messages from the spiritually advanced sources and chant that very same messages for one's own benefit as well as the benefit of one's audience. When Brahma described the situation of pure devotees freed from the culture of empirical philosophy and fruitive actions, he recommended the process of hearing from persons who are on the path of devotion, following in the footsteps of such liberated souls who are able to vibrate real transcendental sound can lead one to the highest stage of devotion, and thus one can become a Maha Bhagavat. From the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatan Goswami, Madhya Lila 22.65, we learn Shastra Yuktye Sunipuna Dhrida Shraddha Yandra Uttam Adhikari Se Taraye Samsara. A person who is expert in understanding the conclusion of the revealed scriptures and who fully surrenders to the cause of the Lord is actually able to deliver others from the clutches of material existence. Srila Rupa Goswami, in his Upadeshamrita 3, advises that to make rapid advancement in the cult of devotional service, one should be very active and should persevere in executing the duties specified in the revealed scriptures and confirmed by the spiritual master. Accepting the path of liberated souls and the association of pure devotees enriches such activities. Imitation devotees who wish to advertise themselves as elevated Vaishnavas and who therefore imitate the previous acharyas but do not follow them in principle are condemned in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam as stone-hearted. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commented on their stone-hearted condition as follows. Bahir ashru pulakayoho satur api yad hridayam na vikriyeta tad अस्मसारम इति कनिष्ठाधिकारिणाम एव अश्रु पुलकादि मतवे अपि अस्म sarahridayataya nindaisha. Those who shed tears by practice, but whose hearts have not changed, are to be known as stone hearted devotees of the lowest grade. Their imitation crying induced by artificial practice is always condemned. The desired change of heart referred to above is visible in the reluctance to do anything not congenial to the devotional way. To create such a change of heart, conclusive discussion about Sri Krishna and his potencies is absolutely necessary. False devotees may think that simply shedding tears will lead one to the transcendental plane, even if one has not had a factual change in heart. But such a practice is useless if there is no transcendental realization. False devotees lacking the conclusion of transcendental knowledge think that artificially shedding tears will deliver them. Similarly, other false devotees think that studying books of the previous acharyas is unadvisable, like studying dry empiric philosophies. But Srila Jiva Goswami, following the previous acharyas, has inculcated the conclusions of the scriptures in the six theses called the Shat Sandarbhas. False devotees who have very little knowledge of such conclusions fail to achieve pure devotion for want of zeal in accepting the favorable directions for devotional service given by self realized devotees. Such false devotees are like impersonalists who also consider devotional service no better than ordinary fruitive actions. Translation once again. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, welcome to verse number 117 of Adi Lila of Chaitanya Caritamrta, chapter 2. Very, very important points we can see in this verse. And first of all, it says a sincere student. Sincerity, Prabhupada says, is very important. Sincerity and seriousness on the devotional path is very, very important. He even said that bhakti is not casual. It's not that we perform devotional service only Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. No. Bhakti is very, very important. And Shastras, they give the knowledge which cannot be neglected. Lord Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Vedesja sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda ved eva chaham. The purpose, the Vedas are given by the Supreme Lord Krishna. The purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna. So these Shastras, they are very, very important. They cannot be neglected. Why? Because these Shastras, they give us strength. They strengthen the mind, as the verse says. They strengthen the mind. And what is the result of a mind that is strengthened by this knowledge? One becomes attached to Krishna. That should be our goal. How to attach ourselves to Krishna? Best way is to associate with those who are attached to Krishna, right? And Bhagavad Gita shows us the way how to get attached to him, to Krishna. He says, Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru, right? Always thinking of me, Krishna says, always thinking of me, chanting my glories, worshipping me, offering obeisance unto me, that will bring constant remembrance. And that constant remembrance also solidifies when our chanting and hearing is attentive. If you remember in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, the qualification is given for those who want to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is attentive hearing. Because unless the hearing and chanting is attentive, we will not be able to remember. The next step after Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam will not happen if these two are not attentive. And how do we do this attentive hearing? We do the attentive hearing by the bona fide process. If you remember in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajashayo viduhu. That this knowledge, the scriptures, they have to be heard in strict disciplic succession in parampara, right? Just reading the scriptures does not help us. It does not give us complete understanding. Why? Because we are imperfect beings. Srila Prabhupada has already explained to us the 4 defects that we have, right? So, being imperfect, we need guidance from perfect source, which means we need guidance from Krishna, we need guidance from pure devotees, we need guidance from the acharyas that are coming down in the strict disciplic succession. Why? Because it's not easy to understand Krishna. Very difficult. Only Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra can help us. When we have this trinity and when we associate with devotees, if you see in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks a lot about association, because association helps us to grow spiritually. Association helps us to remain on the spiritual path. So association is very, very important. And not just association, but regular association. When we chant attentively, we are associating with Lord Krishna. When we hear or read attentively, then we are associating with Srila Prabhupada. When we hear lectures of Guru Maharaj or senior devotees, we are associating with them. And then, of course, there is personal association also. So regularity is very, very important. Otherwise, it'll be very easy to get misguided, right? Like if I am going traveling, I'm driving in my car and I'm going to an unknown place. If I just randomly think of the route, I will be misguided. I have to follow the authority. I have to follow the GPS system and pay attention, right? When the GPS is, saying turn left, if I'm not attentive, I will just keep going straight and I will lose the goal, which is reaching the destination. So to avoid getting misguided, we need to stay alert. To stay alert in the association of devotees, we should be able to differentiate. We should know which is who are pure devotees and who are pretenders. If you notice in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking so much about false devotees, about pretenders, right? Who may pretend to be devotees, but they are actually not devotees. So how do we protect ourselves, right? We need to have knowledge. We need, like Rupa Goswami explains, what are the 3 kinds of devotees? Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, Uttam Adhikari. He gives us the knowledge. So scriptures tell us. And in fact, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the qualities of a pretender, right? So it is good to hear, it is good to read, but that is not sufficient. We need to discuss these topics about Krishna amongst the devotees, not argue about it and confuse others, not try to speculate and not try to put our own thought process into it, but discuss. You see, Prabhupada says we are smart, but Krishna is smarter than us. So when he gave us the Bhagavad Gita and when we got the purpose of Srila Prabhupada through the parampara, then there is no question of speculation, right? The knowledge is there. Everything is there. And the knowledge is there as it is. We are so fortunate to get that. So if we are discussing, if we are contemplating on what we have heard to put it into practice, then we should quote from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Prabhupada was very firm. That is why on his Bhagavad Gita, he specifically put there as it is, so that there are no speculations, there are no ideas, there are no, what I, according to me, in my opinion. No, nothing of that sort. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains how we can advance spiritually and how we cannot advance spiritually without the help of a bona fide spiritual master. So the first step that we are already doing is hearing from authority. We are hearing what Srila Prabhupada has said. In fact, Prahlad Maharaj, a Mahajana, he's a Mahajana, right? He's one of the 12 Mahajanas, and he has given us the 9 processes of devotional service. And the very first one is hearing. Hearing attentively from bona fide authority. These two things are very important. Attention to what we are hearing and making sure that we are hearing from authority. When we do that, then we can advance spiritually. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? We have heard Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, Bhakti Lata Beej. Now that beej, that seed of devotion, has been sown in our hearts by our spiritual master. What do we do next? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says we need to water that Bhakti Lata beej. And the watering process is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra attentively. Then the creeper of devotion is going to start growing. Of course, he also says that we should protect this creeper. We should build a fence around this creeper, and that fence is association of devotees. And then also when we see the weeds, we need to pull out those weeds, and those weeds are the anarthas in our heart, right? Submissive hearing is very important. Chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita says that Vidhi Pranipatina Pariprashnena Sevaya. Two things need to be done: submissive hearing. So, submissive hearing and serving the spiritual master. Then that self realized soul, Tattva Darshina, will impart knowledge unto us. It's not that we go and sit down in front of the spiritual master and demand for knowledge. No, there has to be submissive hearing, which means I understand that I am just a servant. I'm nobody. I'm just an eternal servant of Guru and Krishna, and I don't know anything. And now I want to hear from my spiritual master. That is submissive hearing. And then after hearing, then do some seva. And the best seva that we can do for our spiritual master is following his instructions, because that is what is going to please him. And once he is pleased, Krishna is pleased, and then we get the mercy of Guru, and then we get the mercy of the spiritual master also. In the purport, Prabhupada says that even Lord Brahma, he recommends hearing from authority, and he set an example. He heard from Krishna, the supreme authority. He himself heard from Krishna. There was no speculation, and then that is what same knowledge he gave to Narada, who gave it to Vyasadeva. So this is how following in the footsteps of Mahatmas. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sa Mahatma Sudur Labha. Such a great soul is very rare. But we are fortunate that we have come under the umbrella of ISKCON. We have come under the protection of the Guru and the Acharyas. We've come under the protection of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, right? Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadete Vasudeva Sarvamati Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So a great soul like Srila Prabhupada, very, very rare, but because of him, we have got the opportunity, right? So when we have this opportunity, we should hear from them and we should serve them. And the best service also is to distribute this knowledge to others, preaching. I was listening to a lecture yesterday, and she said that to be able to preach, we should hear more. So the hearing part should be more, and the preaching part should be less. In the sense, we should not preach more than what we have heard. The beauty of this parampara is that we give the knowledge as it is. We don't have to, think very hard to come up with some novel ideas or novel knowledge, to distribute. No, knowledge is already there. All we have to do is give it to others. And who can deliver one from the clutches of material existence? Rupa Goswami gives us the process. What does he say? An expert person who understands the conclusion of the Shastras, one who is fully surrendered and understands the cause of Krishna. What does Krishna want? What is it that can please him? What is it that can please the spiritual master? That person can deliver others from the clutches of material existence, right? So success is guaranteed for such a person, because that's such a person is following the instructions of the spiritual master. That person knows how to engage others. In fact, the disciple should learn from the bona fide spiritual master how to engage others in Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master is expert. The spiritual master knows how to engage his disciple. The spiritual master knows what is the situation of that disciple. It's not that it's the same medicine for all the diseased people. No, each one has a different disease, so the medication is different. Similarly, the spiritual master helps and guides his disciples based on his or her situation, right? So we need to understand that the nature of each disciple, the tendency of each disciple is different. It is not the same. So the guru cannot give the same instruction. No. But our duty is to hear those instructions, to be alert, right? We need to be fully alert when we get those instructions, and then persevere to fulfill those instructions. Then Guru is pleased. And when the spiritual master is pleased, Krishna is automatically pleased. And we are assured of knowledge as it is, because the bona fide guru in the strict disciplic succession will give knowledge only that he has received from his guru. And both Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj, they both stress on the importance of associating with devotees, because when we associate, then we can progress spiritually. You see, mind is very, very strong. Mind can go this way or that way. Mind can become our best friend or our worst enemy. But it is us who have to control this mind. This verse is talking about strengthening the mind. The conclusions of the scriptures strengthen the mind. You see, the mind has to be strong enough to be able to face Maya. We may have different excuses, right, to uh, not progress spiritually. We may have many excuses not to associate with devotees. But here in the purport, so many times, Srila Prabhupada is also talking about association. Very, very important. Prabhupada says we have to be careful of imitation devotees, right? Those are pretenders. But how do we know who is pretending and who is an imitation and who is a real devotee? How do we know? We can know by their words. We can know by their behavior. How do they behave? Are they speaking about Krishna? Are they practicing what they are preaching, right? So we have to be aware of dhongis, right? False gurus. Prabhupada talks about false gurus who are called dhongis. And Prabhupada has also told us that if we have a desire to get a dhongi guru, Krishna will send a dhongi guru for us. But if we have a desire to get a bona fide guru, Krishna will send a bona fide guru. And Prabhupada talks about these false gurus, dhongi gurus, as stone-hearted, right? The verse mentioned from Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about stone-hearted, right? In fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that these stone-hearted imitation devotees, imitation gurus, they shed tears by practice. They have practiced how to shed tears, but their hearts have not changed. They are still stone-hearted and they are of the lowest grade. They are shedding tears, and by shedding tears, they cannot liberate themselves or liberate others. No. Talking about shedding tears, I had a personal experience. Many years ago, I had gone to a funeral, and my relative was sitting next to me, and people started coming to for condolences, and this person is telling me that just let me know when to cry. I can cry just like that. I have got practice, and whenever you want me to shed tears, just let me know. It's very easy. And I was shocked. You see, the mind is the culprit. Mind is the one that makes us do this or that, right thing or wrong thing. So here this verse is telling us how to strengthen the mind with the help of the scriptures. The mind wants an easy way out, right? But if we want to change the heart, if we have not yet changed our heart, if we want to change the heart, then we need to hear a lot more. Just hearing is not sufficient. Then we need to discuss what we have heard. Then we need to contemplate on what we've heard. And then we need to put it into practice. Prabhupada says that these false devotees, they think that studying the previous acharyas is not necessary. No, that is wrong. If we see Prabhupada's purpose, he is quoting the previous acharyas. He'll talk about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He will talk about Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He will talk about Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He will talk about Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. He quotes the previous acharyas. That is the beauty of parampara, right? We cannot become pure if we do not follow the parampara. Why did Krishna take the trouble to talk about parampara in the Bhagavad Gita? He himself accepted a bona fide spiritual master, Sandipani Muni. When he came 540 years ago, he accepted Ishvara Puri as his spiritual master when he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he is not only giving us theory, but also practical. He is showing us with his own example. He's showing us the way how to become a pure devotee and how to become self-realized. The whole purpose of all these scriptures is for us to come to that platform of Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na Shotati na Kamshati. Come to that Brahma platform. Come to that platform where we have become self realized, when we have purified ourselves. There are no more anarthas in our heart, right? That is the process given to us by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Simple process. Now, we all are so fortunate that we have started on this path, but we need to increase the speed. We are already, then one may say, oh, but we are already doing so much. What more to do? How much more to do? Where is the time? But we need to understand, what is my goal? If my goal is very clear in front of me, if the path to reach the goal is very clear in front of me, if the whole process is given to me, for instance, when the student is in the first grade, the teacher is only going to teach 2 plus 2 equals 4. But when the student starts going to the higher grades, the teacher will start teaching multiplication, division, etc., geometry. But then when the student reaches high school, the student will start learning calculus, right? So when the student from first grade starts going to the higher grades, and the teacher says, okay, you finished learning 2 plus 2 equals 4. Now it's time for you to learn multiplication. And the student says, no, but I've already, learned 2 plus 2 equals 4. Now I don't have the time to learn the multiplication. Or if he or she learns multiplication, goes to high school, and the teacher says, now it's time to learn calculus and geometry. And says, oh no, It's just increasing more and more. First you said 2 plus 2 equals 4, then you told me multiplication, now you are saying calculus. Well, that is a process. We start from the basics. We start, with hearing and chanting. Then we follow the four regulative principles. Then we, hear more. Then we get initiated. Then we get second. Then we just keep moving forward and progressing more and more. So our goal should be very clear. If we do not want to come back into this material world, then we have to strive harder. We have to work harder. Yes, material world, there are lots of problems, lots of issues, physical, mental, financial, whatever may be different kinds of miseries or problems. But that should not stop us from progressing. So we need to work harder because there is not enough time. We may think, I am still very young, I have a long way to go. There is no guarantee at all. So, here this verse is telling us a sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial. For such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. So, if we follow the process given to us even by Rupa Goswami, he says, Adau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nivriti, right? So we have that basic faith now. We started a Bhajana Kriya, we started Sadhu Sangha. Now we are in the process of Anartha Nivriti, trying to remove the unwanted things from the heart. When we start doing that, then we will come to Nishtha, and then, Asakti, Ruchi, Bhava, then finally Prema, that attachment to Sri Krishna will happen only when we struggle really hard on these first baby steps. If we do not cross these steps, then how will we reach to that place where we are attached to Krishna? Now, to get attached to Krishna, we have to first get detached from something, right? So when we get attached to Krishna, automatically there is going to be detachment. There is no need to work harder on that side. It's just a question of getting attached to Krishna. How many of us, when we pick up our chanting beads in the morning, we are so ecstatic to chant that, oh, I've got one more day to chant 16, minimum 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? Has that taste been developed? If it hasn't, then we need to hear more. We need to chant more. And most importantly, we need to associate with devotees more. Very, very important. So this is what this verse is talking about. And I'm going to end here now. If anyone has any questions.